The more I watch Starfleet Academy, the more I think we can call this era of New Trek a failure, and that it needs to be mothballed for a while before anything else is made. I think this show in particular is the crystallization of all the problems that have built up over the past decade or so. I don't think that this multitude of problems are fixable, mainly because the root of them all come from a cancerous entity that for nearly 20 years has been slowly ripping out chunks of a once healthy and thriving franchise that was beloved and hailed as one of the greatest things the entertainment world has ever produced. That cancerous entity just happens to be made up of the very stewards of the franchise itself, Paramount, Alex Kurtzman, and his devotees.
Alex Kurtzman is
Show after show has been either canceled, retconned within their own continuity, called non-canon after a handful of seasons, or theorized to all be part of the Kelvin timeline, which has recently also been canceled after nearly 13 years of lying dormant. I don't like much of anything that's come before Starfleet Academy, mostly because it's all such a chore to sit through, and I feel like I'm literally having my remaining years of life sucked away by some unseen force determined to end me. I also really don't like all the forced-in gay stuff in this show either. It doesn't add to anyone's character growth or the overall story, nor does it actually represent the people from that demographic who enjoy Star Trek, let alone the people who are not from that demographic. That being said, I feel I need to clarify my viewpoint when it comes to gay people and that community in general. While I myself am not part of that group, I understand that everyone likes to see themselves in the media they consume every once in a while. Movies and TV shows are entertainment after all, and sometimes it's nice to see someone who you can not only sympathize with, but also empathize with. In real life, I know that everyone wants to be loved, and I have no issue with anyone being who they feel they are, as long as it doesn't hurt children or others who choose not to feel or believe the same way. Now, as far as movies and TV goes, I think there is a misconception that these kinds of people have been underrepresented in the media for a long time, and that because people are more comfortable with being themselves in recent years, they are just now putting these kinds of things in movies and TV shows. Which leads me to ask, do you think gay people only just started writing for TV shows and movies within the past few years? Absolutely not. Gay people have been in the movie and TV industry for literal decades. Gay themes have been in TV shows and movies for a long time, as well as in the writers, directors, and producers' roles, probably longer than anyone could even estimate. The difference is that it used to be done really well, and told with the addition of a good story. Now writers are so focused with pushing a message or an agenda that every episode of every show and every movie is required to have gay characters and overtones of gay writing in everything. Star Trek itself has dealt with these types of storylines much better than what we are getting in Starfleet Academy. There is no excuse for how forced and over-the-top it is in Starfleet Academy when the previous version of this very franchise have been more respectful of the topic and the people they are representing, as well as the people who are casual enjoyers of Star Trek in general, who don't fit in that category. Starfleet Academy is not failing because of the addition and forced injection of gay people or stories. It's failing because the stories they are telling are dull, with uninteresting characters that are neither believable nor likable. The actors are not at fault here either, so I'm not blaming them, since they are working with what they've been given, and they are likely giving everything they have to make sure what they are given is good, to whatever degree they can muster. Unfortunately, it starts with the writers, and that is where the issue lies. I just watched the documentary What We Left Behind, which is about Deep Space Nine, and the first few minutes is about how fans didn't like it when it first came out. This made the writers and producers work harder to make the show better, so people would like what they were making. And you know what? It paid off, because Deep Space Nine is one of the best Star Trek shows out there. The writers knew that if they were going to make their show succeed, they had to engage the audience and give them what they wanted. The very fact that they also weaved in gay characters, anti-capitalist stories, political messaging, and even racial injustice and prejudicial stories that were just as pertinent to the time as they are now, mind you, shows how well they did at writing that show. People complaining that Starfleet Academy is failing because of review bombing are forgetting that negative reviews are literally just normal people who don't like an objectively bad show. Yes, there are idiots out there who try to organize and submit negative reviews to be trolls. But on the other hand, when the people who are doing the opposite and review praising because they just slurp down the slop in order to own the chuds, it does just as much damage as what they think review bombing does, because it tells the executives that people want more of the slop, so they continue throwing more and more money at the slop makers, and nothing good is accomplished. It is a complete net negative. And at this point, you could write whole volumes of books chronicling the demise of franchise after franchise that have been almost completely obliterated by writers, producers, directors, showrunners, and even actors who collectively ignore what made these things loved and enjoyed by millions to just take it in a direction that is antithetical to its original and beloved concept. This leaves a very small fan base that ends up being made up of people who are either trauma bonded to the franchise and have Stockholm Syndrome, sticking around even though it's killing them, or they have deserted the entire thing because they were deemed the problem and ended up being the vast majority, leaving the franchise hollowed out of any real future hope of it ever being brought back in a meaningful or genuine way. Because of all this, Star Trek is now limping along year after year to the detriment of the original idea it began with and to the fans who eventually stop watching altogether. It is being propped up by people who think that if they just keep praising it and just keep watching the slop, they'll eventually get something good. Like how a broken clock is right twice a day, which is only a 17% success rate, I might add. The point is that maybe Star Trek should be shelved for now. Maybe it should be allowed to retire after 60 years of being around. Honestly, it feels like it already did retire back on May 13th, 2005, the air date of the last episode of Enterprise. Since then, Star Trek has been strung along by people who are only interested in using its shriveled up corpse to push agendas, and that comes from the mouth of the lead architect and executive producer Alex Kurtzman, who said,
Black Lives Matter, the NAACP. The goal is not really to promote Star Trek, but to promote these organizations and to use our platform to be able to bring greater awareness to these very, very important messages and places.
So what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and as always, live long and Qapla'.